welcome fantasy players back to another fantasy episode where we're going to talk about cup racing. And as usual, PJ Walsh from the Action Network is here, my betting expert. PJ, a busy 2 weeks. We saw 2 at Darlington, the Coca-Cola 600, and now just a couple days later, we're back to Charlotte. But this time for a sprint version, basically half the distance.
Yeah, I'm still mourning my Chase 9-1 bet and him coming down pit road. So I'm hoping for a quick race, something I can actually win and just ease the pain.
Well, what we learned is that with these back-to-back races, there's a lot of information to go through. Let's talk about our fantasy lineup. And you have to start with last week's winner. We had Brad Keselowski breaking through in the Coke 600. But it wasn't a dominating performance. It was a pitch strategy call that gave him track position. Now, he did it. He won it on that final restart. But where do you stand on Brad sprint race Wednesday night?
Yeah, you can't really predict strategy. I'm going to avoid him. He's 9-1, but he's starting 20th. And as you mentioned, it's such a quick race that I want the guy starting up front.
Yeah, I'm actually avoiding Brad either, which is surprising because, he has top 5 points for fantasy players in 3 of the last 5 races. He's gone back-to-back 3 times in his career, but it's not like it was a dominating win. While he did get the win and he has the trophy, and I'm not discounting it, I'm not willing to bet my fantasy life on him doing it again. But that brings us to probably the hottest hand in NASCAR, Kevin Harvick. While he wasn't dominating the race or anything like that, another great run, 7 top 10s to get the year going here. Where do you stand on Harvick?
It's hard not to love him. I mean, he's the championship favorite for a reason, right? The whole thing with Keselowski is we can't predict strategy, right? We can't predict rain. We can't predict tires, but we can predict speed. So we know Harvick's going to be fast. He'll probably be a top 5 car. I'm avoiding him just because of driver limits.
So I'm avoiding him for driver limits, and I think there are tracks like we saw at Darlington where handling will matter. Coca-Cola 600, it seemed like it was much more even, a little bit harder to predict. I'm going to save those rock-solid thoroughbreds for later in the year at some of the handling tracks. That's how I'm going to list Harvick. All right, well, if we're not taking Brad, we're not taking Harvick. We have a whole lineup to fill. I'm all in on Chase Elliott. Tough luck at Darlington, tough luck at Charlotte. The tough luck's going to have to end. I think Chase Elliott's going to come out with vengeance.
And just hearing his name, it makes me cringe because of how bad that went. But I like Chase. I mean, he was so fast. You got to go with him. And I'm taking the Hendrick front row. Give me Byron and give me Bowman.
All right, I like that. All right, I'm off the Byron chain, but I see where you stand there. So here's who I like. So you like Bowman, you like Chase, and you like Byron. Surprisingly, skipping Jimmy Johnson, who was eliminated with a post-race infraction but had a good car. How about Joey Logano? I'm taking Joey Logano. He has points in every stage. Last week, I know he didn't get the finish he wanted, but he got a penalty at lap 350, 50 laps from the finish. He was going to finish well inside the top 5, in my opinion. He's 13 for 15 when it comes to stage points this year. I'm not saying Joey Logano is going to win, but he is going to win me points, and that's what matters in fantasy racing.
Yeah, I'm actually avoiding him. I'm on your Byron train this week, so I'm taking Byron. You mentioned Jimmy Johnson. He was fast, but he's going to start last. Again, this race is so short. I don't want him at the back. You can have Logano. I'll take your Byron this week.
All right, well, if you're on the Byron train, then I'm going to get on the Reddick train. Why not? Tyler Reddick, he's convinced me. I love the short race. I love the short race for Tyler Reddick. So I have Reddick in for sure. Another top 10 this week. Ran 8th in the 600. I think he's a threat for another top 10.
And remember, all the guys are starting so far back. He's starting 13th. He has a good pit selection. So I do like Reddick. I'm actually looking at betting him at 50-1 now that I didn't bet him last week and he was one of the best cars. So I'm looking at betting him again. So I can't argue against my guy Reddick. I can't, but I see what you're doing.
All right, well, I have another 2 names, and they're both start with B, and neither are Busch, if you can believe it. I'm going Christopher Bell, who has finally got some footing. I don't believe he's a winning car, but he's finally finishing races. I think he'll do it again. And Ryan Blaney, Mr. Charlotte. For some reason, Charlotte Motor Speedway lines up for Ryan Blaney. He had a strong run in the 600. So my lineup's going to look a lot like this. It's going to have Chase, Bell, Blaney, Reddick, Logano. Coin flip on the 5th. I got to figure out who I'm going to be. Maybe you talk to me into either Bowman or Byron. We'll see.
Bowman or Byron. I like Bell too because in fantasy, betting's different, but in fantasy, you don't need him to win. If he finishes 12th this week, you're getting your value out of him.
That's it. And it's all about value. You're going to have those big front runners, but remember, with driver limits and fantasy live, you have to find those other picks. Most importantly, you have to make your picks. Remember, green flag Wednesday, prime time. Our friends at Fox have the coverage. It's another race from Charlotte Motor Speedway.